Have you ever wanted to turn your DJing into more of a live performance? Well, I recently just posted this routine on all of my social media platforms and it got a pretty good response. In this video, I was using Serato stems along with hardware effects on my Rane 72 to create a live looping type of routine. Now, this isn't exclusive to just the Rane 72 and can be done on a variety of hardware, so let me show you how to do it. So the live looping concept for that routine is really based around using the hardware effects, in this case on my Rane 72, to create a loop that I can stack on top of and layer on top of to create my own original kind of performance or piece. So in this case with the Rane 72, I'm going to be using the hold echo effect. Now, if you're using something like a Pioneer 900 Nexus 2, the effect you're going to want to use is the roll effect, or on something like Pioneer S7, S9, or S11, it's just going to be the echo. And for all the cases, you're going to want to make sure that your wet dry is turned all the way up. That way you capture the full volume of what you're trying to loop up. Now, once you have the correct effect selected and you make sure that that wet dry is turned all the way up, the next thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have the maximum amount of beats selected for the effect, or amount of beats that you're comfortable with. Now on the S9, the max you can do is 4 beats. I think you're able to do more on the S11. I don't remember off the top of my head, but on the Rane 72 you can actually do up to 16 beats, which is 4 bars. But I like doing 8 beats because it's enough time to do something a little bit more creative than just 1 bar. But 2 bars is still a lot easier to manage as far as like making sure everything's in on time. So again, I have my correct effect selected. I have the wet dry turned all the way up. I have 8 beats selected. Now the next step is making sure that the BPM sync for the effects is on. So in this case, I'm using Serato DJ, and the BPM from Serato DJ feeds directly into the mixer and it'll always be synced up. So that's taken care of. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, if you notice, I'm using Rane 12s in this, and that's because it's a lot easier to do this on something like Rane 12s or CDJs in HID mode, where that BPM will not fluctuate. Now, if you're using something using timecode, like CDJs using sticks with timecode on it, or turntables with control vinyl, even though the BPMs stay pretty close, they're not going to always be locked, and it might fluctuate a little bit. And if it does that, it's going to be a little bit harder to get a really crispy, fine-tuned loop. So keep that in mind. If you can do it on something like CDJs in HID mode, or something like Rane 12s, or a controller with hardware effects, it's going to be a lot easier to do that. Now that we have all the technical stuff out of the way, now I can start with an example of how to do this live looping. So I have this drum loop on this deck, right? Now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to start the drum loop and then turn the effect on at the same time. So what I like to do is just kind of tap along, and then when I'm ready, I'm going to turn the effect on, something like this. Now see how I drop that fader? That's to make sure that there's no more sound that goes into that loop and it overlaps. And notice I turn the effect off, but since I have the dry wet turned all the way on, it's still looping around. I can even stop the deck, and we're good right there. Now what I can do after that is I can actually kind of stack on top of it. So maybe add some scratching of the kick drum at the end, since there's that gap. Something like that. Right? Now I have a classic sample on this deck. Now I want to make sure that the BPMs are matching. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit the cue point and turn the effect on at the same time. Now we have a perfect loop with 3 different layers on top of it. Now what I can do, since I am using Serato stems, I can go back to this deck, grab the vocals, just stack on top of it.
hot chick that a youngin' never seen before.
just like that, we can create something really creative, something that's super original, picking up different pieces, even incorporating some scratching, some acapellas, all just using the hardware effects on this setup or any other setup that you might have or run into. You can do something like this. It's super fun to just kind of get creative and see what you can come up with. I find it really cool to be able to use my creativity along with all the different kinds of tools we have now with digital DJing to come up with fun routines to share with others. And I'm sure if you give it a try, you'll find it fun as well. Now, if you're interested in learning about more DJ hardware that's on the way that you'll be able to do live looping on, be sure to check out this video right here. And until then, see you next time.